he asked people sitting in on a few classes, and it was, I think the teachers didn't mind it, the students didn't mind it, and hopefully when we get that full report, we'll read good things.
Great. I'd just like to add real quickly on the Rensselaer game. I know the music department was really excited about the opportunity for both encore to sing and for the pep band to play throughout the game. It's obviously a new experience for them as well, and they were delighted to be a part of it. So this thing impacted far more than just the athletic program. It was really a great source of pride for the district.
And the cheerleaders.
And the cheerleaders, absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a great experience for everybody who was involved with it. So, so that was that. And then the one last piece I'll make relative to my report is that last week, RHAM hosted the Charter Oak Music Festival. This is a student music festival that runs each year with the schools that were part of the former Charter Oak Conference athletically. They had combined years ago to offer this festival. And it's similar to an Eastern Region or an all-state festival where they have the opportunity for students to get together with some really skilled composers and directors, get great examples of new music to try out, and then perform a concert. This is the first time in recent memory I can remember RHAM hosting. The comments that I heard throughout from the faculty from all the visiting schools were, first of all, they were very impressed with the facilities that we had to offer. Blown away by the auditorium, blown away by, half of them came in and looked at the band room and said it was the equivalent of both their band and choral rooms combined in terms of space. They'd love to have programs that were represented as strongly as they were here. So the school itself represented well, and the students did a great job representing us in terms of some of the volunteer time they put in. Just simply helping guide people along, figuring out what room to go to, and logistics throughout the event. So it was a great event across the board. All right, brings us to item 8 action items. Start out with 8.1. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 26, 2015 regular meeting, enclosure 8.1A, and the district meeting, enclosure 8.1B. So, okay, motion by Joe. Get a second?
Yeah.
Okay, second by Dave. Discussion.
No, I just want to, I'll circle all that I can find, and I'll talk to you after about my name. It's
Okay,
fine,
so it's a
it's
spelling
all
change.
good, but it's a lot, and it's different all over, so yeah,
Okay.
it's fine.
All right. So aside from that change, any other errors, omissions, or corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, 8.2, personnel actions. And we call up my information here. Just a second. I had it up before and then switched over to something else. That's my fault. Okay. I'd like to have a motion provided that the Regional School District Number 8 Board of Education accept the resignation of Andrew Gadwa effective November 13, 2015. Okay, motion by Amy, I'll take a second from Joe. Discussion? We'll hear more about this too when we get to item 8.7 on the agenda, but just I would say from the board's perspective, appreciation for Mr. Gadwa's service to the district, and sorry he's going to go. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 8.3 reports. Entertain a motion to receive and file the following documents: levy payment schedule, enclosure 8.3A, cash flow reports, enclosure 8.3B, student activity report, enclosure 8.3C, monthly budget report, enclosure 8.3D, curriculum instruction assessment and instructional technology report, enclosure 8.3E, student discipline, enclosure 8.3F, sick day report, enclosure 8.3G, and special education report, enclosure 8.3H. Okay, motion by Mike. Do I have a second? Second by Rich. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to item 8.4, first reading policies.
Okay, we met last week to discuss the policy of resident students not attending public school, and we had a lot of discussion discussion about it, and based, Dr. We had had some feedback. Dr. Sminsky had spoken with the attorney, and he recommended that we not allow students to take part based on just, things that were going on and just not wanting to, it was just easier not to allow people. We had a bunch of discussion, and we had a lot of discussion about that internally from some other people who were at that meeting.
Chris, you were there?
Chris was there.
Oh, yes.
And something else?
Was Manny there?
Yeah, Manny was there. So, we knew we'd get some different opinions or some other input. I don't know how people feel about that. The thing is that by setting a policy saying that people could attend, there just seemed to be a lot of different ways it could be interpreted and a lot of different exceptions, and it just seemed to open up a lot of litigation. I think that's why the attorney recommended that we do not, we just had a blanket policy. If not, there was a loophole. I believe there was a way to get people into the, to take advantage of things through the, yeah.
Just while you're getting that, just for clarification, so the issue at hand is a student that lives in the district, does not attend RHAM schools as an educational opportunity, but is seeking to participate in RHAM offered extracurricular activities and events without being an attending student in the district.
Is that how that's how they're defining non-enrolled students?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just want to throw out there, because to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, is this child, my understanding is, had needs that weren't being addressed, or they decided that it was best that they, a separation and the parent would homeschool instead. It wasn't that, it's not that this child's opting somewhere else, to go out somewhere else and wants to come here. This is like a next step almost to maybe reintegrating into the district or not. I think that the policy of just absolute no is a problem, because I think that the parent came to the board because they got a no from the superintendent, because that's, at that point, we didn't have a policy. Now we do have a policy that says no, but the superintendent can do it. I guess I assumed that the superintendent would say no.
Well, I think the superintendent tried to work with them and they come up with some alternatives, but the parent came up with some
You
objections.
shouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
Correct.
Specific,
Now we can have
identifiable.
specifics regarding specific student.
Yeah.
But we can say conditionally that from council's recommendation, the concern is that when you create a blanket policy that opens or allows participation, you create a Pandora's box. And student A may have very legitimate reasons for participating in extracurricular activities. Student B, may be a student that was trying to get around a grade requirement, so thus becomes homeschooled, parent gives them all A's, now they get to participate. You have to, and the policy has to be equally
So if
administered.
you have hypothetical student A, who could be my child, anybody's, whatever,
Yep.
who is homeschooled, which is different than attending, Mercy or Xavier or Kingswood or wherever. Are you saying that this page that we just got addresses what I think Amy brought up as concerns? Are you thinking the bottom paragraph addresses that? I'm confused what this
My
is.
original presentation to the committee was the policy that you had after the discussion, and that's the, not the split with the action, but the other one I just handed
The
out.
one.
Proposed 6210.
That's right.
No, the
No.
board is not
No.
voted. This would be a recommendation from the policy subcommittee to the board. The board
Not this one,
Correct,
not this one.
right.
That, the one that was in our package.
The one that was in the board packet. Right.
Right.
The extras,
It's in the board packet under first reading.
It's the one that. And we had, like you said, we had a lot of discussion on it. You start bringing in people that aren't part of the school, then you've got to worry about vaccines and medical forms, and the list goes on and on. And what happens if something goes wrong? Then we have,
well, I don't know that that was necessarily a concern, because medical, you have to have medical clearance to even participate. I think part of it was, like some, the Pandora box, sports requirements to make it look like you're shopping to get players from other towns into your school, to be on the team, and a lot of other things like that. There are ways to have a student participate through, there are ways to have them participate formally, but.
I can think of at least 2 or 3 kids who are not a part of this district because of their needs are different. And if they want, like, if mental health or something else, if being included in an activity in the school community is an option, I mean, I think inclusion should be the first thought, and the what ifs and being scared and not providing an open environment for all kids. If they live in our district and they would be in our school otherwise, then I think that policy should somehow reflect that our board is open to it. Our superintendent would follow through with, like, making sure that there's a structure in place, so that we're not having people come in and.
Are you suggesting that the administration have some, I'm trying to look at this word.
That is uncomfortable with the point of policy of no also. That's why I thought we really needed to bring it before the board to figure out.
The bottom part, that kind of, the last paragraph, where you, did you write that?
That was the attorney.
The attorney,
No, did you write this bottom paragraph?
No, the attorney wrote that paragraph.
The bottom paragraph?
Yes,
Yeah, council.
council wrote that.
That the administration may permit not enrolled to participate in programs have access for activities held before and after. May permit access and provision of shall conform to admin regs promulgated by superintendent to implement this policy.
And I think as far, I'm sorry, as far as schools, I mean, the sports are concerned, there's CIAC rules about that, so I don't even know if that's even,
CIAC will not allow.
okay, so that's not even on the table.
That's not an issue, it's
We're
the
talking about clubs.
participation of a non-enrolled student in a club at Graham High School.
Okay.
Could be
And
cheerleading.
if you would recall, on September 21st, I handed you a letter from council that discussed this, and then my next step was to ask council to write the policy. The policy that you have in front of you,
The longer one.
the
Correct.
longer one, is what council had written.
And then what was presented in the board packet is what the policy subcommittee recommended.
I kind of like the one that, I mean, and I appreciate all of the work, I don't even know who's on policy, but I appreciate all of the work that you do, but I kind of like the attorney one, because I think that it takes into consideration what Amy's saying.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the attorney one as well, leaving it up basically to the discretion of the superintendent, right? That's essentially what it says.
Right.
Am I correct?
And remember, this is first reading.
Correct. Yeah, it's not, this policy is not being voted on tonight.
Yeah.
What I would say is the consensus that I'm hearing is that there are enough board members here, from a majority perspective, that the policy may want to reconsider this when it comes up, as far as the language presented for second reading and for approval by the board.
I'm not sure how it's
I mean, it's up to policy to recommend what we see for second reading next month, whether it's what ultimately came out of last meeting or whether it's this. The board will ultimately vote yes or no on that. But, I would just say that the sense that I'm getting is that policy that was recommended by the policy subcommittee for review by the board is starting to sound like it may have difficulty passing. So at the next policy subcommittee meeting, it's just something for you to consider. There's no action you've taken out.
And I think, I know we're just talking about it, I actually think, because I do think we want to do what is most protective of the board, that's the most frugal in the long run, that's preventative, and I actually think the longer policy with the discretion that Mrs. Shea referenced that it allows is more protective.
I would disagree with that, because if I had a student that got turned down, the first thing I would do is call an attorney.
Yeah. Well, if I were a parent such as Amy recommended, the first thing I would do is go to a special ed and file some kind of special ed and get my kid back,
Right.
which would be very expensive too. So I mean,
Yes, and.
Yeah, it would. I
The
guarantee
short
you that
policy
would.
doesn't prevent that from, that we,
but it's,
trying to pick my words here.
It doesn't prevent that practice, but it does open the door for litigation against the district, which would become an expensive district.
because you're not
Which
trying.
one? The longer one does that.
No, I think the shorter one does, because you're not trying to meet the parent halfway. And if there were a scenario such as Amy suggested, it might be an identified kid or something.
No, yeah, I agree. The shorter one still provides that ability.
I don't think so.
That's what it's.
I don't see it.
No, yes, it does.
For the whole board.
I don't
Because
see it.
in that scenario, they would have what do you call it? A school plan, which makes them a part of RHAM.
The wording on this is so direct that it's just,
Yeah.
will not allow access, that I think you'd have to consider some sort of wording that said, unless overridden by IEP or by public
Yeah.
504 or some other sort of guideline that we would, or by state statute.
And the thing is, an attorney wrote, this first policy, and they have the experience, and they know the proper wording, and so that's why I think,
And
in my opinion, I think the long form is better.
I think, frankly, the attorneys write a lot of things, and I don't always agree with them because they're not personalized to the district. It's just a form type of thing. But in this situation, I think that as a board, that we really have to be intentional about how we want to project school. And if we're going to be an inclusive environment, if we're going to be a board that's going to create safe environments for all kids. And I get it for the kids who are trying to beat the system, that's not what this is about. It's about the kids who, for whatever reason, are not enrolled, and the reason they're not enrolled is a bigger issue. And I think as a board, it's everything I stand by is to make this an inclusive environment, a safe environment, and somewhere. And for this case in particular, we could say no, but this policy gives the superintendent the right to say yes. And if they came to the board, we could say, why aren't we saying yes? And I think that we have to have that conversation.
And it's different than what some other towns, districts have, it's a blanket, anybody can come in, this is not that.
Right.
This is definitely.
Should we add to the policy minimum requirements? That they have to have their physical, they've got to add their shots?
I would leave that up to the discretion of the superintendent once again.
Which is why
That one's more of a board issue at that point.
well, the council's language in here about such services shall conform to administrative regulations is designed so that there's latitude for the administration, because if you try to write that that sort of restrictive language into a policy, you're going to be modifying your policy every 60 days for new situation A, new situation B coming up, and you just can't keep pace with all the changes. If you allow this admin regs, it's flexible for the administration to adjust on the fly as they need to.
I agree with Amy about trying to keep the school environment inclusive. I think relationships with the community are important. And one thing I learned a while back in a seminar I took somewhere was you want to avoid litigation, maintain a good relationship with the people and communicate. Or if you don't, or you shut them out, that's when you get hit.
And that's exactly what parent attorneys will tell you.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's why I supported the second law form.
So I think we've heard pretty clearly, as far as the board members that are here, their feelings. I would invite board members, both here and those not able to be present tonight, to provide their feedback directly to the policy subcommittee as well, so that they can discuss it at their next meeting, which should take place before a second reading would come before the board next month. And then when we go to act, hopefully it will be in wording language that will be supported and moving forward. Okay. All right, takes us to 8.5, second reading policies. I'll entertain a motion for 8.5A, packet number 1, children and Goodwin recommendations that the board adopt policies as recommended. 4118.2, 4218.2, alcohol and drug-free workplace. 4253, report of suspected abuse or neglect of students or sexual assault of students by school employees. 4195, 4295, prohibition against smoking. 5114, student in-school suspension, suspension and expulsion. 5141.1, administration of student medications in the schools. 6118, student use of the district computer. And 6205, curricular exemption. A motion to approve those as presented? Motion by Dave, got a second? Joe? Discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Brings us to 8.5B, packet 2. I'll entertain a motion to accept and adopt the following policies as presented to the board. 9130, officers. 9141, committee of the whole. 9170, orienting new board members. 9240, code of conduct for board members. 9270, conflict of interest. 9314, meeting conduct. 9315, role of board members. 9345, public meetings and executive session. 9430, commitment to democratic principles in relation to the community, staff, and students. Motion by Dave, a second? Second by Joe. Discussion.
We decided at the subcommittee that we didn't have time to discuss these, so we're not going to send them to second reading.
No, I don't think so. I think we said that.
Yeah, we did. I certainly had a lot of things to talk about. Okay, so if we're going to be talking about it, I'm going to have to try to do this from memory then, all these policies.
Discussion's open.
Yep. First,
Can I just ask, can we pull it because of this disagreement? Can we just pull it and maybe the policy committee can talk about them again and just resolve whatever issues are, because otherwise, because there seems to be
If the
a
board
difference
agrees that it's
between-
worth tabling, absolutely, we can take that call.
I'll make a motion to table this, give a chance for the program committee, the policy committee to review this.
Okay, so motion on the table to table this until further review by policy. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, second by Amy. Discussion on tabling?
It seems to be that there's maybe a misunderstanding, and so rather than
My only question, Rich, would be tabling for date certain. Are you saying tabling until the next meeting, or are you saying tabling?
Well, the next meeting, so we can do the proper review.
Okay.
The whole idea was one, we didn't have that review because there was one seat you had anything to add to it, because you weren't there.
Okay.
And I had a long list of stuff to go through, and I tabled it.
Okay, so it's tabling until date certain for re-presentation to the board at our December meeting.
The general question, is there any reason we're going to kind of these cage, more of a cage style policy with some of these now?
There's definitely language in there that was derived from Cave, and that's, I think, part of Rich's point on why he wants the table, because there was discussion he wanted to have regarding what language was applicable for us as a district versus what was just plain recommended policy from Cave. Any other?
I'd
Yeah.
just like to say that I've read through these, and I think a lot of them are really good,
Yeah.
and I think they're needed.
I think
there was a
that-
little previously.
Yeah.
And,
My memory of that discussion was that we would kind of leave it up to the board to talk about that, but that, you know, they've gone through first reading already, and, you know, we're just looking for more comments, but,
I'm in conflict of interest, I mean, there's so many items here, you know, that are pretty standard, you know, certainly in another board, and the 9,000 series is pretty common. I have the floor, please. It's pretty common, commonly used throughout, you know, a lot of board policies include these items. And I think that they're, you know, they were developed by CAVE for a reason. They've gone through many vettings relative to, you know, what is legal and what is appropriate. And I didn't see any problem with anything like that.
And I don't think necessarily that we'll come up with any problem, but just to the point that one person on the committee is, out of two or three people on the committee, is there's a misunderstanding, so it's, in being collaborative, he's tabling this, I think would probably be a good idea.
Any objections to calling for a vote on tabling the issue? All right, I'm hearing any, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of tabling this issue to date certain, the December meeting, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so those are tabled till December. 8.5C will entertain a motion from packet 3 to adopt recommended policy 9345, public meetings and executive session. A motion on the floor. Motion by Dave, get a second? Second by Joe, discussion. Yeah, Bob, just for clarification, this policy language was vetted through council against recent FOI conversations and validated that we're looking to comply with it. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the policy as presented, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're up to 8.6, discussion and possible action regarding board meeting dates for 2016. I will entertain a motion that the board adopts meeting dates for 2016 as provided in enclosure 8.6. Moved by Mike. Do you have a second? Second by Amy. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 8.7, discussion and possible action regarding music teaching staffing. I'd like to entertain a motion that the Board of Education direct the administration to support the increase of the current middle school music position from 0.6 to 0.8, with the intent of the board to review moving to a full-time 1.0 as part of the discussions for the 2016-17 budget.
so,
Okay, well, I'll take a motion from Dave. Got a second? All right, second by Rich. Any discussion?
I agree. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's not mine.
That'll give us 2 teachers, 2 full-time.
It makes it full-time in the middle school, yeah.
We kind of don't know how we got where we are.
Yeah.
It's the national war.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it's been a revolving door position. You're gonna get step 1 bachelor's, first job out, and as soon as they find a full-time, they leave. It's not fair to our students, to continually face new people each time. And the program has shown strength, it's shown, demand from the students, so. All right, hearing no further objections, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. So now, Bob. All right, up to 8.8, discussion of possible action relative to the master plan submitted to the Region 8 Board of Education. Are there any motions we need to consider relative to the master plan for this meeting?
One comment.
Okay.
I don't know if that falls under here or where am I on the agenda with the athletic fields? Is that 8.?
Yeah, that's for the athletic concerns, that's 8.12.
Well, let me just ask my question first. I think we've done our due diligence in applying for this, so where are we with the master plan as far as, you talked earlier about the ADD or ADA stuff, and separately, where are we with the big portion of it, as far as what is the next step? Has the application and the grants been applied for or submitted to Senator Osten?
As I told you today, and I just finished my discussion with the Department of Ed, and need to continue the discussions. Once I have an answer to all my questions, I will give this to Senator Osten with the dates that I give you, that it will, I have to give it in by June 2016. We won't see any possible funding until July 2017. I think that the key that we need to probably discuss as a group, if we're going to make that submission, is the match that, as I said, for the handicap accessibility, it's the 38% match. Where does that come from? And how do I, because when I submit the application, that has to be present.
I guess my confusion on that, Bob, is I'm seeing 2 sort of separate and distinct issues on the table. One is the ADA compliance and things that we need to do from that. Totally understand that being submitted through the State Board of Education, through their process and due process. But there is a much larger chunk of facilities-related investments that need to be made that both Representative Mulligan and Senator Austin have talked with us about, to say, if we need to find a funding avenue separate from the normal process, now's the time to talk about that inclusive, and that was part of the master plan conversation.
That's where I am. I'm saying that I would submit that to the senator once I get some clarification from the Department of Education. So there'll be 2 submissions. One will be handicap accessibility, one will be 50. But if we're going to submit that to the Department of Ed by June of 2016, I think the facilities committee needs to have some discussion as to the question of match. The first submission is fine, that can go ahead. It's the second submission.
Again, I think I'm hearing what you're saying, Bob. My concern is this: we're at November 16th now, and the original guidance that we received from our representatives was that we needed to be prepared by early this month, so that they would have the time to move their process.
And what I did is I worked over the weekend to get the application stuff. And what I need now is some clarification from the Department of Ed. Once I get that clarification from the Department of Ed, I can write Senator Osten a letter saying, look, this is where these pieces are. I called this morning, didn't get a return phone call. This afternoon, I didn't get a return phone call. I'm trying to just get some information as to how I need to be sure that the handicap accessibility grant is in order, so it will be approved. That's where I am. The other grant, I think I'm pretty well set there. It's the first one that I have some issues with.
But the direction we were given is to go give her everything, give Senator Ostin everything.
And I am going to give her everything.
But you're waiting for, it sounds like the way I'm understanding, you're waiting for the State Department of Education to say no before we give her that. And she wants it.
No, she will get it, but her instructions, as I understood them, is that the Department of Education had to say no.
No, I don't think so.
Yes.
That's what I.
Well, yeah, but she said that, but they most likely are going to say no.
Right.
But that doesn't mean, that doesn't,
But first they had to say no.
You have to submit it correctly, though. I mean, he doesn't, his due diligence is just to submit it correctly. He doesn't want to submit the paperwork incorrectly.
but
And then open it up.
I've had very good dialogue with Senator Ostin. I believe we can work still in a parallel path with, she's looking for the spreadsheet that we wanted to have everything complied with, or what we wanted, the pie in the sky numbers.
Right.
She can still get that.
Yeah, sure.
She can still, I thought that both of them had to be submitted to her at the same time. And that's what I was waiting for, because I wanted to be sure that the match was in order. And as far as the second grant, the big one, I think the Facilities Committee, after the submission to the Senator, has to have some discussion. Are you going to work on getting that 38%, or where does that piece go?
You need to have a conversation. The ADA one, it sounds like we have to have a district meeting to resolve that one.
Mike, that's, he needs clarification from the Department of Ed.
From the Department of Ed.
You can't submit that without knowing the implications.
Understand, I'm not trying to be a roadblock. I want to get this thing off my desk,
Yeah.
because I spent a lot of time on this.
But do we need to take action now to make that happen?
How can we take action if we don't know how he's not sure how he has to
And
submit?
All right,
I have to say, honestly, you know, and I really would love to see, and I hope all of this goes through, and I think we have two powerful state people working on their behalf, so hopefully it will. But as I'm hearing something that maybe we've already used our curriculum writing money for the year, you know, we have so many needs, and I would like to know what some of the dollar amounts, the ADA and the compliance things, it sounds like we've got to do, and with that amount. And then with the other, you know, and I saw Kathy today for a while for something, Kathy Austin, and, you know, the other hopefully will all go through. But I think there's a big difference if it all goes through under state bonding, or if we're paying a percent, and what that looks like, and what that means in this already stretched and challenged budget. So I would like to understand that. I don't know if anybody else would.
Let me ask this. Is there anything that would prohibit or prevent us from submitting a status report to our representative saying, this is the information we have, this is the state we're having right now, and these are the things that we're waiting for?
That was my point to call her tomorrow morning to put you on tomorrow. Because when I did get the response from the Department of Ed, you can see I've invested time in this. I mean, you know, the weekend was short enough because of some things you did here. And what I did was I took the time to get the application done. It's sitting in pencil on my desk, waiting. One of the things from the Department of Ed today, they said it has to be submitted electronically.
So that one, by looking at the checklist, basically requires us to have the money there targeted for that. And right now, we don't have that money there.
That's what he's looking for.
But then
You see, my intention was to say to them, look, the board has two non-recurring capital funds. The board is in the process of scheduling a district meeting to decide how to reallocate that money to be the 38% match.
And that could be done with the compliance, right, because there's money for that. That there's just so
That's money for the
potentially
compliance.
huge. Right.
Can I ask a question? If we don't have that set up, if you submit what we have and we don't have the money allocated, then it's not going to be accepted.
Right.
Then it needs to, I mean, if we had to choose and we had a choice, we would want bonding. We're not going to have to pay back bonding. We're going to have to pay at 38% of this whatever kind of grant that we're going through with the State Board of Ed. So I'm sensing the urgency from the senator and from the representative to get this information so that they can start talking with the other senators as part of this bonding before they go and give out the project's numbers. I think that time is of the essence,
I
and
think he said he put in a couple of calls to the representatives, he hasn't heard back from them.
At the State Department. In fact,
At this-
That's not representative.
You didn't call? I thought you
if
called.
you notice, I've got the motions here that I need to submit with the stamp, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Clark and the chairman to sign these things as witness that we passed them at the last meeting. I need these things to submit too.
If you have calls back from the State Department of Education, then representatives can help with those too.
I mean, to me, the easiest path is the conversation with the legislators to say, I placed these calls, these are the questions I have, this is what's holding this piece up. And allow them to, you know, provide their guidance from a perspective from Hartford on what are they gonna recommend? Are they gonna recommend that they're gonna, you know, go over to the Department of Education, have a conversation about the urgency and get that moving forward? You know. So I just think it's a conversation with the representatives. If you plan to do that tomorrow, then that's fine.
That was my plan,
Okay.
because I
She
think I did
wants,
the job with one.
she'll take the spreadsheets tomorrow. She's happy with it tomorrow. She just is sure.
Okay.
She'll take the spreadsheets tomorrow.
I'm sorry.
I work with
No, I
very
was gonna say, why
closely,
don't you do
I
that?
work very, very closely with her. I just do. So I know her very well.
That makes sense. Yeah, I would encourage that we work closely with her from here on.
All right. Yeah, as long as we're gonna, have.
I just want to be sure that before I take that next step, I get all the documentation in a row. And that's why I called the Department of Ed today.
And I think that was a prudent way to do it. And I think the State Department unfortunately does take a while to get back in certain things, but I don't think, and I can't remember, I don't think she needs them until, I can't remember if it's February or something like that.
It's February.
Yeah, I think so too, but just for her to see the spreadsheet, she wants to see them. I don't know how many, she loves spreadsheets, and she does, and facilities projects, and she does.
Mr. Jacobs, I went over the spreadsheet on.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, do we get to see this spreadsheet, the final breakdown?
I would love to see that too.
Yeah, definitely need to get that sometime.
I can get that. I was more concerned about the status report and getting these things signed.
Understood. I mean, that spreadsheet as it stands now is already built, correct?
That's right.
All right, can you just distribute that to the board tomorrow? Sure. All right, thank you.
If we're done with that portion of this portion.
Additional items for discussion relative to the master plan?
I'd like to, I'm not sure if this should be a motion or not, but I'd like that we pass the facility subcommittee to go forward with the plan, working with the town people to go over, like the Hebron letter and work on having those discussions and start having community discussions. So let's make that a motion to.
Okay, so the motion is that the board instruct the facility subcommittee to continue conversations relative to the master plan and have discussions with the towns on any open issues that they have, and make sure that those items are moved forward as needed. Right? Okay, I'll second the motion. Discussion?
Is this the same sort of thing as when we were talking about having a task force to address capital?
No, this
Or
is.
it just the master plan?
This is an item that Mr. Larson actually brought up in public comment at the beginning of the session, relative to, there are certain issues relative to the master plan that impact things beyond the campus. If you're gonna light a field, that lighting becomes light pollution theoretically for neighbors of the campus. The town of Hebron then therefore has an interest in how is that handled? Are we gonna have any issues where we do something that creates a problem for them as well? They just wanna have a conversation and make sure that these issues are not dropped or missed. So I think that conversation can happen at the facility subcommittee level.
Yeah, I
And I
think
wanna-
it's a bit premature too, I think, because we don't even know what we have or what we're gonna get. So until we do know that, it'd be we can just throw it around, but we can't really.
Well, we can start prioritizing.
I think identification of any potential issues is a healthy thing earlier rather than later. And I'd rather know, earlier that here's something that definitively can't be done that was in the recommended plan because there's something that's going to prohibit it versus, yeah, you want to continue to move forward with maybe this happens, maybe it doesn't.
And I wanted to include focus groups or work groups with the actual community. Let's have that discussion.
Yeah, that'll be something that's going to happen on screen, but the immediate needs that have been called out, I think, are worth conversation.
Well, Jenny sent us a letter, that was part of it, but I think another letter from the town of concerns, it sounds like it's the town of Hebron that has the most concerns here.
Well, because our campus abuts and exists in this town, this is the town that's most directly impacted by the physical things that happen here.
Perhaps Tierney or the Board of Selectmen, to the committee.
Yeah, I think, interacting with the facility subcommittee. I just don't see an issue with that.
Just kind of something you should be doing anyway as part of some kind of project. It's no different than our budget or anything else.
Right.
Go out to the town and make sure they know. If you want a motion, go every step of the way, you can do that.
I think that's part of the normal process of what we've been doing too.
I agree, but I think it's helpful with facilities to have, just know the board is supporting them in those interactions. I don't see a harm in that.
Yeah, but Carol's point is that you're gonna have this meeting with the town, you invite all these townspeople, and you're gonna say, well, we're really not sure what we're getting, we're not sure what the funding is, it seems like there's so much that's unknown.
Yeah.
It would seem like
We have to start prioritizing it, because even if we don't get the funding, that means we're gonna have to get some of the funding from the voters.
No. Well, yeah, but
There's still,
this doesn't,
infrastructure stuff has to be done regardless of
Right.
whether
right.
the money's gotta come from somewhere, so I think that, and even as they begin their budget conversations for the coming years, if maybe they'll have, extra manpower where they can go and cut down certain things, so we don't have to budget for that.
Yeah, but I don't think that we need to have an open forum with the town here and say that we're gonna fix the steps and we're gonna fix the, things like that. But I think that the things that impact the town of Hebron is things like stadium and lights and things like that. I mean, and if we don't get state bonding with it, I don't think anybody thinks that the taxpayers are gonna vote.
But I think that there's, like, somebody mentioned parking is an issue.
Right.
And that's something, and we're talking about changing where the entrance is. I think that makes a difference, we're talking about traffic. And those are all things that have to happen regardless of whether or not we get bonded. Those things are.
We have to fix the sidewalks, we have to fix the track.
Right.
So whether we get the money from the state or not, we've got to come up with a strategy.
Well, I think that's part of the task force that all 3 towns should be involved in. And
Yeah.
I think the facilities committee needs to remain a subcommittee of the board and not become a greater entity.
I think, and I kind of keep saying the same thing all night, it's like Groundhog Day or something, but, and I think it's amazing what the facilities committee and what all of you have done, I do. But it just worries me how tight the budget was, how narrowly it went through. And as Rich pointed out in an email, I mean, it was kind of back and forth, but geometry books were cut. We couldn't even get geometry books through, and they're